Plan 6, drawing 28, we've got all our parts that we'll require for our door latch, part 154 through to 159. We also have our location of where it will go. Drawing 30 is a 1-to-1 scale plan for us to cut the templates out. We'll start with the latch plate. We'll need 2 of these, 100mm by 33 in 1mm mild steel. We've also got the mounting plates. We'll need 4 of those, that's 2 per side. That holds the sliding bar. It's 15mm wide by 39mm. We need 2 sliding bars, 138mm by 13mm in 3mm thick steel flat bar. We've also got our female locks that goes on the car. That's 47mm by 13. We'll need 2 of those. We've also got some handles. Now you could either make these or go to the hardware store and purchase them. Our 1mm parts we've had laser cut. We've also done the etching for the fold lines. So the first part that we'll actually make is our sliding latch. So 138mm long. We'll have an M6 threaded hole. That's for the internal and external handle so that we can open the door. We'll need 2 of these. We'll also be using them to form our pressed metal parts where the saddles are and also the latches for where the lock is actually attached to the car. To make our slide bracket mounts, we've come over to the engineering table. So what we're going to do is we'll use the slide as a hammer form. So we'll be clamping this down, we'll be stepping this side, then turn it around and we'll step the other side. Don't forget we need 4. Before we form our saddle bracket mounts, we're just putting 2 shims down. That's so that we can get a good clearance with our door handle slide over the 2 saddles that are welded to the base plate. Because the pad is wider than our 13mm half-inch strap, what we'll have to do is in 2 processes. So first of all we attach clamp, then what we'll do is we'll put the step on this side. We'll then reposition the clamp and we'll put the step on the other side. Just make sure these faces where they contact the base plate, make sure they're nice and flat and level, because if you have a gap between the base plate and our saddles or the mounts, you'll end up blowing a hole in either of the components. So make sure your fit is nice and tight. Just setting up our first latch here, you can see how the saddles are positioned. So the next thing we have to do is create this female latch. To do that, we'll be using our flat bar, folding this section around, our lock seaming pliers to then fold it back on itself. So we have our laser etched fold lines. This will create our 3.5mm U channel in the base. So we'll be using the flat bar, we'll put it in the vise, fold it over, then reposition and squash it in the vise. Just initiating the fold, squeeze or pinch it with your fingers and then you can reposition in the vise and the vise will do the finishing work for you. Just watch out for your fingers. So that positions like so. If there's any misalignment or orientation, you get a pin so that squares it back up. So you can see how that's all horizontal now. But initially when we set it there, you could see that one was higher than the other. That's it. And the material will have a little bit of spring back. That's what you want. You want that clearance. Just remarking the opposite side. Don't forget we need to do both sides. Measure in 10mm and then mark. Then we'll be using our seaming pliers and bending those ears or tabs over. We're ready to weld our mounts now onto our backing plate. I've measured in 19mm to the outside face of each of the tabs. I've also used our slide bar so that when we attach it to the welding table it doesn't collapse. Each of these faces will have a MIG tack on them. That's our latches done. We've got a little bit of cleaning up to do as far as overhang on the weld. Then we can move on to the door handles. We're up to the door handles now. You can make your own using some solid round bar. However, we've purchased these from a hardware store. We'll be needing 4 of them. There's 2 per door. We'll also have to cut 2 lengths of M6 Brooker rod, 34mm long. We'll have to drill and tap this to M6. So let's modify these and fit them to the car. With our door handles, we're going to have to drill in with a 5mm drill bit 10mm. Then we'll be using an M6 plug tap and go in 8mm. Just remember, only go 8mm deep with your tap, otherwise if you go too deep, the tap locks up and you'll break the tap. That's our set of door latches done. So we're ready to go now. We've also got our wooden door stops that Ezio previously made, so now we can fit all this to the car. We've got our door stops. I've pre-drilled these to 4.5mm hole and countersunk. I've done both sides. So off our plans, we have to measure down 70mm from the top of the tray down. Then with our door, just to make sure it stops at the right point, we have to make sure that this is flush. We'll do that with a square to position. Then what we'll do, holding the door stop in place, we can then mark it with a pencil. We can then pre-drill with a 2.5mm drill. We'll do the same to the other side. That's our door stop positioned. You can see now that we're nice and flush, so we need to repeat this on the other side. With fitting our door latch, we'll leave the outside handle off. So, fitting it through our pre-cut hole, there's a couple of millimeters of play. Just try and get it in the middle. So when we attach the outside handle, you can see here our flat bar or the slide lock has thread on it. So what we can do is actually put enough tension on it, and you can see now it's supporting its own weight. So the next thing we also have to do is get this level, and we've got to measure in from the back face 5mm. When attaching the door latch, we'll be using a 7G screw, 12mm long, 2.5mm drill as a pilot hole. So remember, don't go all the way through. That's attached now. Don't forget, we've got to release our latch so that it functions. Now we can go ahead and fit the other latch on the other side. Then we can do the receiver in the rear kick panel. We're ready to fit the receiver now. To do that, we need to mark the exact position of where our latch will hit the rear kick panel. Before you mark the latch, make sure that your door is pushed hard up against the stop. That way it's flush and level with the kickboard. Then we'll be drilling a series of 7.5mm diameter holes to a total height of 14mm. Make sure you've got this dead square, both horizontal and vertical, because whatever angle you drill it at is the angle at which your receiver will sit. So if it's got a twist in it, then your latch may not go in. When you're drilling this, make sure you don't go any deeper than 15mm. Don't forget we've got the cross member behind, so you don't need to drill all the way through. We'll then be using 4G by 12 wood screws to fit our receiver. That's our latch and lock fitted to both sides, nice and firm, so now we can move on to the next part. We're up to the last part on plan 6, which is our door check strap. We'll be needing 2 bits of leather, 15mm wide, 180mm long. We'll also be using some eyelets. We'll need 4 eyelets and 4 7G screws. Making our leather straps, there's a purpose to it. When the doors are open, so we don't over open them and damage the guards, as in the paintwork, etc., the leather strap will form a stopping point. It stretches a little bit and it won't wear out. So, our leather strap, what we've got to do is a couple of things. First of all, we've got to come in 10mm. We need to punch a 4mm hole. Then, at 20mm in from the end, we fold it over. The corresponding hole, we simply punch through there. We'll then attach our 4mm eyelets. Our eyelet pliers will then squash the eyelet. So we'll do that total of 4 times because 2 straps, 2 at each end. First step is to measure 180, mark it, cut it, and we'll do that twice. I've measured in 10 millimeters from the end, halfway through the width, and that's our mark where we need to create our 4mm hole. Measuring our 20 millimeters, which will be our fold point right there, we then fold that over the corresponding hole we need to punch through. When fitting the eyelet, I want the presentation to be on the side in the cabin. So this is a side that you would see. Okay, that's it, just squash it down. So you can see there that the brass is protruding through. Just use your fingernail, push it right down into the corner. That's our first eyelet completed. So now we've got 3 to go, and then we can fit it to the car. That's our 2 door straps made. So now we need to attach it to the door. A good location point is about halfway through our dash where the fold is. We'll also be going halfway through this window opening, and we'll be attaching it on the door frame first. From there, we can then work out, just by simply holding it, how much spring we'll get with our leather. We can then mark that point, and we'll be attaching with our 7G screws. That's our first point of attachment. So we'll pre-drill 2.5mm. Remember, don't go too deep, otherwise you'll end up going through. Just using a 7G button head screw, we'll attach our first point of the door strap. When selecting the location point for our anchoring, you have to allow for a little bit of spring back. Obviously, whether it's vinyl or leather, etc., and how thick it is will vary on each piece. So once you've worked it out and you've got a nice clearance here between the back face of the door and the guard, you can then mark with a pencil. Once we've done that, we can then attach the strap to the firewall. That's our first door done. We'll repeat the process and finish the other door. That's our door locks, latches and check straps done. Now we're up to the final part. Drawing 31 is our seat base. It's 2 parts, part 167 and 168. They're a wooden seat base. To do that, we'll be handing it over to Ezio.
I'm now looking at drawing 31, which deals with the seat base that we need to manufacture. We need 2 pieces of 19mm thick ply. Small piece, larger piece. Larger piece is 420mm by 460, and the smaller piece is 460mm by 70, and they'll fit in such a manner like that, all fitted in with screws. Now that my 2 pieces are prepared, I'm going to mark out the screw positions as per the plan, and then I'll pre-drill the holes and then I'll fit it all together. Given that the material is 19mm in thickness and my piece is going to be screwed in such a direction, I want to find out where the centre line of the screws are. So I'm going to mark 9mm, and then using my trusty pencil gauge, just draw a line ever so gently, like so. Then, as per the plan, the position of the first screw is 25mm in from this end and 25mm in from the other end. I will then mark 82mm from that position, and so on until I've got them all marked out. I will then pre-drill them, ready for assembly. To assemble my 2 pieces, I'm going to use 8 by 40mm screws, which means that I'll be using a 4mm clearance hole and drilling that on my small piece, and then using a 2.5mm drill bit to drill out my pilot hole. What I'm doing is I'm using cutting board that I made earlier in the piece in order to protect the bench. Now that the holes are drilled, I'm just going to put a small countersink in there. And what I like to do as well is just countersink the back so that if there's any rubbish or swarf from the back, it won't interfere with the assembly process. I now have my 2.5mm drill bit in here and I'm ready to drill the pilot holes. I've placed the base in the vise, as you can see, to hold it nice and steady for me, and I'm going to hold it like that, nice and steady, in line, and drill my pilot holes. Now, if you're not happy with this process, you can, of course, lower this down in the vise and then place your timber across the top like so. It'll be exactly the same. The choice is up to you. Just make sure that it's flush. I now have the base all assembled, and the next step is to round all the edges over to get it ready for upholstery. You can use a cork block, plane, files, or even a small router, or an orbital sander if you have one. I've now completed assembling and rounding over our seat base, and I'll now just hand it back to Vaughan.
Thanks to Ezio for doing our seat base. It positions here on the tray. The next thing would be some foam and upholstery. On drawing 31, we can give this to the trimmer who will trim our seat base, but you can also come up with your own design. That's our seat back from the trimmer. You can see here he's got some lovely pleats. This is period correct for what we're looking for. Also on the seat base, he's got some good stapling. So, as far as securing it to the car, what we're going to do is after it's all painted, we'll be putting some hook and loop Velcro on the base so it secures, it stops it from sliding around, and we can also remove it and clean it. Congratulations, you've finished the pedal car. You've fabricated it from scratch. Sheet metal, timber. So we've had some good days, we've had some really hard days. You've fabricated it from scratch. Therefore, your range of skills that you've covered has been really good. We've just got some minor detail work to do prior to paint.